Do you know that we are living in a magical world where magical things happen because magical things have happened to you? Here are more reality shifting stories from Cynthia Sue Larson's website, realityshifters.com. Terry in Provo, Utah, told of how every summer her children loved to go camping with their dad's family. But in the summer of 1998, she was short of funds and didn't know how she was going to buy everything they needed to go on this much-loved trip. So she did manage to scrounge together $100, and then she asked her children to say an affirmation that it's enough money for everything they need to buy. So they went to the superstore, and she had put the $100 cash in her pocket. And when she got to the store, she just pulled it out to recount it, and it was $150. So she said, oh, okay, we have $150, so we have more than we thought. And so her children were trying on shoes, and then she reached in her pocket. She said, I better recount that because I know I only put in 100. So she pulled it out and counted it, and it was 200. So it had gone up another 50. So then she gave the money to her 16-year-old daughter and said, count this money. How much money is here? So the daughter counted it, and it was $200. So then they went and they were looking more for other things to buy in the food, and she reached in her pocket and counted the money again, and every time there was $50 more. And this went up to $450, and it stopped at $450. So the money in her pocket had increased in $50 increments from $100 to $150 to $200 to $250 to $300 to $350 to $400 to $450, and they had enough money to get what they needed. And it just seems like miracles seem to happen when there's intense emotion. She had intense emotion where she really wanted the children to go on this trip, which they love so much. And then she had her children say the affirmation, and you know how much power children have. So I just love this story. And you got to believe in magic to know this really happened. Joanne in South Windsor, Connecticut, and her were going for a walk along their favorite place to hike, which was a long stretch of beach, and her friend was not feeling very well. And when they started out, Joanne spontaneously counted the benches that were further along the beach, and there were 8 benches. And then her friend counted them, and there were 8 benches. And then they counted them together, and there were 8 benches. And she thought it was curious that they were counting the benches because they had been there so many times before and had never done that. And as they were hiking, on the way back, her friend was getting really, really tired. So then they sat on each bench. And as they were sitting on each bench, all of a sudden, a 9th bench appeared that was not there, what they had counted. And her friend was so relieved because he really needed to rest. And then he rested on that 9th bench, and then they walked back. And when they had reached the starting point, they turned around and counted the benches, and there were only 8 benches there. And many times after, they had gone back, and there was always 8 benches. But that one time when the friend really needed that 9th bench, it was there. And the thing was, she started the story out by saying it was a beautiful day, and they were enjoying the beautiful day. And it really seems like the appreciation and the joyful feeling of the beautiful day, as well as the gratitude for the benches, seems to have contributed to this miraculous, magical shift. And speaking of benches, Steffi in Munich was on a vacation at a little Greek island, and she was walking to a little store to get her lunch. And as she was walking along towards the store, she was scouting to find a perfect place to sit. She was hoping for a little bench near the sea so she could sit down and have her lunch there. But as she was scouting and looking, she couldn't find it. But then just as she entered the store, she thought, oh, well, that's okay, no problem. There's a long wall there, and I can just sit on that low wall. So then when she came out of the store with her bread and her avocado and her little lunch there, she saw a bench that had not been there before, and it was under a tree, and it was by the low wall, so she could sit down there and actually put her feet on the wall right by the sea. And really, it seems to me that the fact that she let it go and said, instead of being upset that she couldn't find a spot to sit, she thought, no worries, I can just sit over there. And then magic happened and the bench of her dreams appeared. Love those magic benches that appear when you need them. Yvonne in Madison, Wisconsin, she lived by a lake, and one morning she got up really, really super early, and it was a beautiful morning, and she started going for a walk, and she was just craving a grapefruit. She didn't have any at home, and the stores weren't open yet. And as she's walking along, enjoying the beautiful morning, all of a sudden she looked in the grass and there was a beautiful, perfect grapefruit. So she picked it up and took it with her down to the lake and ate it by the lake. And she said she thinks that grapefruit was from another world because it was the most delicious one she had ever tasted. And Kimberly in Milton, Ontario, it was a beautiful fall afternoon, and she was going for a walk through her hometown, walking downtown, and the leaves were changing color and they were blowing down, and she didn't have any money with her, and she thought she'd just go window shopping. She enjoyed looking in all the windows at the displays. And then all of a sudden she looked up, and she saw, like, amongst the leaves that were floating down, there was a $20 bill, and this $20 bill just floated into her hand. So then she went and had lunch at a tea house, and she said that she was treated to it by the universe. Again, enjoying the beautiful day brings magic. Even that, not that the enjoyment itself isn't magic enough. Ray in Northwest Arkansas, he went to a spiritual workshop in Phoenix, and he said he had a really blissful time. And on his way back, he stopped off at a gas station to fill up the tank of the rental car. And when he went in to make the payment, and he said the money was appearing in his hand as he was paying, and even the exact change required just appeared. Those coins appeared in his hand, and it was like this moment where he recognized that the cashier was noticing that this was happening as well. And then after it was all over, it was like the cashier just went back to as if that hadn't happened. But he knew it did. And might I add, he said he had just had a blissful time and he was on a real high vibe when this happened. TKD in Rhinelander, Wisconsin, he was replacing tiles in his dining room and hallway, and he measured out and he counted how many he needed, and then he even added a few extra to what he purchased. And as he was about halfway through the job, he realized that he recounted the tiles, and he was actually going to be 5 short. So then he counted again, and he measured again, and he measured and he counted, and he calculated what he had bought, and it wasn't making sense that he would be 5 tiles short. But he just said, I'm just going to have enough tiles to do this job. And then when he just kept on going and laying the tiles, and then it turned out he did have a little bit extra when he was done. I like how he just said, I'm going to have enough and it's going to happen. So he was right. Alan in Glasgow, Scotland, his washing machine was at end of life and he had to buy a new one. So he measured it. The old machine measured 59 centimeters in width. So the new one that they bought was 59 centimeters in width. And then they took out the old one, and when he went to put the new one in, it wasn't fitting into the space. So he was perplexed, and so he measured the space, and it was 58 on the bottom, but 61 on the top. So then they measured and he remeasured, and it was, again, yes, it was 58 on the bottom and 61 on the top in the space, and he couldn't get it in. And anyways, he was getting a little bit frustrated, and so was his family, but it was the weekend and they went out to the countryside. And they went out to the countryside, and then we came back, they were all refreshed. And when he went he thought before they return the machine, he's just gonna try one more time. And the machine just slid right in, and the measurements had changed. It was 61 on the bottom and 61 on the top, and it fit in perfectly. Must have been that refreshing vacation that changed it all, that shifted it. Stephanie, not sure where Stephanie's from, but Stephanie had this amazing dream that she was gifted this beautiful outfit of shimmering golden yellow. And when she woke up, she took it as a sign that she was on the right track in her life. And then shortly after that, she was on a trip and she was in Santa Barbara and she met these wonderful people and said she had a blissful time down watching the waves and the stars and with new friends. And that night, as she was walking home, she saw in a shop window, all lit up, this beautiful golden yellow outfit. And she was so excited. The next morning, she called and asked if they would hold that outfit for her, the shimmering yellow gold one in the window. And there was silence on the end of the line. And then the woman said, well, like 3 days ago, we changed the window display. Everything in there is red. So Stephanie went down there and took a look in the window, and that very outfit she had seen had shimmering gold was now red. So for some reason, shimmering golden outfit likes to appear to her, whether it's in a dream or in a vision in a window. Erin in Perth was in a bakery with her child and saw these 2 perfect muffins on a plate, the last ones left under a dome. So she asked the cashier for the muffins, and the cashier put the muffins in the bag. And as the cashier was putting the muffins in the bag, Sharon thought, oh, I wish there were more muffins there so I could get some for my husband too. And then the cashier looked, and Sharon looked, and 2 more muffins were on the plate under the dome. And the cashier's going, I just took those 2 muffins and put them in the bag. I guess her husband got a muffin too. Her casual wish kind of made magic happen. And speaking of yummy baking, Lynn was a mail carrier in a rural area where she would drive from box to mailbox to mailbox. And as she drove past one that she knew she was going to be passing on her way back, she was actually hungry. And all of a sudden she had a flash that the person who lived there had left her some peanut butter cookies. And she just had this in her image, what the cookies looked like and how many there were. And so she continued on her route and turned around, and as she was on her way back, and when she stopped at that box, again, she had that flash. And when she opened it up, those peanut butter cookies were in there, and they were just like she had imagined, packaged the same way and with the same amount, and they were delicious. Leyland in Montreal was walking down the street on her way to university and was pondering about reality and wondering, can we really affect our reality? And if we can, give me a sign. And all of a sudden she heard something drop, and she looked, and there was a full deck of cards, and the cards had these beautiful pictures on them. And she took it as a sign that we can play our hand how we choose. Carrie in New York was walking down the street and was thinking about her grandfather who had passed away a few years ago and how she missed him. And suddenly there was a man walking towards her who was dressed the way her grandfather would, with the fedora hat and the long coat. And as he approached her, they looked at each other, and this electricity went through her body, and her body was vibrating. And then she thought, wouldn't it be weird if he disappeared? And sure enough, she turned around and looked, and he was gone, and there was no man walking away from her on the street. She took it as her grandfather saying hi to her because she was thinking of him. Well, there are so many wonderful stories, and it includes miraculous healings and so on. So there's a lot more to cover, but I'm going to end this one with 2 stories from Ursula in Warsaw, Poland, because these 2 stories of Ursula's demonstrate so beautifully how our way of being can affect our reality. So in one of them, she had gone into a shop to pick something up that she had ordered. But when she went there, it wasn't the item that she ordered. But much to her surprise, the shop owner got very aggressive and started shouting at her and telling her that, she can't return the item, and she can't get her money back, and she has to take it or leave it. And this, so Ursula just left the shop, and then she just took a few steps, and then she thought, well, I'm going to go back. And then when she turned around and she went back into the shop, and the same shop owner was suddenly very nice to her and said, would you like me to order another item, or would you like me to return your money? So this person had completely shifted. And to me, I take this as Ursula's vibration had actually affected this shop owner's vibration and brought her to a more balanced state of being. And then another one that happened with Ursula is she was on a trip with a friend, and the friend was doing some things that were quite irritating to Ursula. And at one point, they were outside near the sea, and Ursula got quite angry at what her friend had done. But then she noticed herself, and instead of lashing out or reacting in anger, she just turned and she just ran into the sea. And as she did that, she suddenly got a very light, playful, childlike feeling, and she was splashing around and playing and jumping in the water. And then when she came back out of the water, her friend acted like none of that altercation hadn't happened, and the rest of the trip went very smoothly between them. So we really do have control over our emotion and state of being, and it really does affect everything around us. And then sometimes magical things happen unexpectedly to just absolutely delight us. So I look forward to reviewing more reality shifting stories, because there are hundreds of them and they are so intriguing, are they not? Thank you, and see you again.